validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
Look, I was late for the button. There we go. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Steven, he said, man, I got that notification today. He was rocking out to the Jews, the jams and stuff we got going on right now. All right, so everybody else, I appreciate you guys for coming to the show. As y'all know, here on this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we do not let the sun rise without going live, but we do not always start on time, and that's why we ask you guys to like and subscribe, mash those reaction buttons while you're here, hit the notification button so that you can be reminded when the show does go live, in case we have some updated information that we're going to give you at the top of the hour. And then double check the membership, because we got something coming out on the membership every night of the week. At least one, if not more, notifications being dropped into the membership, walkthrough, step-by-step guides, portfolio recommendations, diversification strategies, rebalancing strategies, all kinds of stuff that you guys could use and potentially benefit. Eventually, I'm gonna have to put up a separate site and just like start selling this information. I don't know, turn it into like a e-booklet or something like that, and take a lot of this information, just put it into an e-booklet, and then just put it up for sale online, and start like expanding the show into some other areas and start getting some stuff in there. But because we go live every night of the week, we have a different topic every night of the week, and that gives us the ability to give you guys more insight all over the place. He says, "Seen that Prospect Capital went down, and that's all I got this week." That's why you only have Prospect Capital. You should have Prospect Capital, Ellington Residential, and Orchid Island, and they're not all going to have the same payout date. They're going to have similar expiration date or ex-dividend dates where certain days out of the week. Hold on a second. The other dog. Give me just a second, guys. We got the other dog in here. Come on, man. Messing up the podcast. Come on. Got this on me over here barking at everybody. You said every dollar I invested this week was on Prospect Capital just for this week. Oh, no, that's fine. No, that's fine. So all of the real estate investment trusts did slice this past month. Okay. So you had your 12 cents from Orchid Island that went down to 10 cents. You had your 12 cents from Prospect Capital went down to 4 cents. And you had your 8 cents used to be Ellington Residential. I think it's still at 8 cents. But it didn't really go down that much in price though. But the other ones like almost slashed in half as far as the per share price. So I'm talking about the dividends. The dividends got cut. The dividend payout got cut, but in comparison to its buy-in price, the buy-in prices got cut as well. So it is still at 22% return on investment, which allows for you to buy the stocks a whole lot cheaper than what they were. And that gives you the capabilities to benefit from when they do bounce back, because they will bounce back when the war is over. So we're still in conflict with Iran right now. So real estate investment trusts are going to take a hit because real estate investment trusts come from real estate, and real estate is going to be rental properties. And with like 250,000 Americans or more in another country, they're not in America paying rent. So that means that the rental properties are going to be compromised. And then we have the other issue with the way the laws just got changed with the quantity of rental properties that a business can possess. Because that got changed, they're going to be selling a lot of rental properties that they used to buy and hold. So it's going to change the way they do business. However, it's still going to be one of the better ones to grab when you're trying to expedite the volatility of your portfolio in order for you to rebalance that volatility into stability. So yeah, I was watching that. I grabbed my stock party. They told me about it already, but you're going to see the payout dates on different days out of the month. So whenever you see it go down, you just buy in it way cheaper and let it build itself back up, because it will spin itself back up at some point. It is completely unlikely since 2008 that all of the real estate investment, all the real estate investment trusts actually take a dive at the same time where they all go out of business. It's highly unlikely. FX Trader says, please don't get rich because too many lose money during a divorce. Well, the people who lose money during the divorce, special shout out to FX Trader. So the people who lose money during the divorce do so because they get married with no strings attached. And we're going to be talking about today why Americans don't get rich. You got to recognize that when you get married with no strings attached, common law marriage and regular marriage is going to have the spouse to be entitled to 50% of whatever goes into the house, because based on the laws from back in the 40s and 50s, the woman's contributions to the marriage were non-monetary contributions that aided in the development of the household, where once the marriage was dissolved, we also had to recognize that back in those days, the wife didn't have a real job because, the freedom to work wasn't there. And then we had the standard of living that she was in is no longer supported by her because she's divorced. So the man would have to pay her alimony. Well, now, since women are masculine alpha boss ladies that can do their own income, since the law doesn't have a he's trying to say facts but autocorrect is not your friend today. But because they're masculine alpha boss ladies, they can get their own bag. And since the laws are not gender exclusive, when the divorce happens, whoever makes the most money is more likely going to have to give more of their assets to the one that makes the least money and potentially have to pay alimony to the one that has the least money. The only difference that you have in that dynamic is usually in family court, they put the children with the woman, unless, of course, the man has more availability than the mom. So that's going to be the only change that happens there. But more often than not, the woman gets the children, and whoever doesn't have the children is expected to have child support. So if mom makes more money, but mom has a kid, dad may not have child support, but dad won't get alimony. But if dad's got the kids, or if there's a joint custody situation and mom makes more money than dad, then mom would have to pay dad alimony. So since the laws are not specifically gender exclusive in that dynamic, we recognize that anybody who gets divorced off of the quote unquote because we love each other thing, and you don't have the paperwork there, you're risking destroying everything that you built, whether you're a man or a woman. Because we can say a lot of things about the lack of contributions that women have towards a relationship when she is not the priority breadwinner, when she is not the one with the largest quantity of stake in the game. We can say a lot of stuff about it today, but the true to life value is that if you've got a house, if you've got a car, if you've got inheritance, if you've got a beneficiary of life insurance policies, if you've got trust, if you've got any assets anywhere, whether you're a man or a woman, before you move in together and start pooling your money together, y'all should start getting that stuff under contract, like who owns what, and when we part, who gets what, and also have a clause in there where you waive any rights to seek compensation through the acquisition of anything that's not listed here. And by doing that, in these like girlfriend contracts, boyfriend contracts, however you want to word it, we call them girlfriend contracts because it's a male-driven podcast from a male's perspective. But from that logic, you would recognize that if we part ways before marriage, you're going to take what's in this contract, and I'm going to take what's in this contract. And in any kind of family court, the judges can mediate the division of assets. And it actually saves you guys a lot of money in family court, because if you already have a contract that says that you're supposed to get the car, if the car still exists, when the separation occurs, you're supposed to get the car. You're supposed to assume the debt that the car has, but you're supposed to get the car, right? So, and in those particular, because that's a lot different from a prenuptial agreement, but in those scenarios, when you're signing a contract that's waiving the right to seek claim on anything that's not listed there, if I have something in Dubai and I don't put it in this list, and you agree that you will not go after anything that's not in this list, if you find that I've got a bank account in Dubai, you can't get your lawyer to go and seize that. I mean, you could try, but you signed a waiver that said that you wouldn't. And if you have breach of contract penalties in there that are so substantially high that your ability to seize assets from somewhere else is not going to be feasible, because your reimbursement on breach of contract would be far more than what you find. In those situations, it kind of discourages them from breaching that particular agreement. Now, there's a lot of laws involved with that, so it's not going to be a picture perfect, open shut, ironclad situation. But if you have year over year, relationships that are updating and renewing these particular documents, and then when you do get to the engagement, and this is another thing, Stephen, I actually was thinking about this, because remember I said that we would have like a fiance style contract, and basically it's a performance contract where if you fail to fulfill your half of the getting married part, that compensations and reimbursements would occur. Because a lot of times when you're left on the altar, you've paid for the venue, you've paid for the reception hall, you've paid for all these guests, hotels, the rings, all of the stuff that went into the process of getting married. And if the person doesn't marry, that's a default, right? So, if you have a contract, it's like, if you walk out of this, breach of contract, you got to reimburse me X, Y, and Z, all this other stuff. And then you have that addendum stuck into with all the other ones. And then you start talking about your prenuptial agreements. Now, I know that there's a lot of prenuptial agreements that have loopholes for infidelity and all this other stuff, abuse and everything to that effect. But true to life, if you have the type of prenuptial agreement that is strictly based on if you walk with what you brought in, um, and you update it regularly, where you recognize that if things change, if we sell something that was on the list, or if we buy something that wasn't on the list, we have to update the documentation every 6 months or every year, or whenever there's a major change in our marriage, so that we recognize, one, it's almost like with Big Bang Theory, where they had the roommate contract, like, and then they have the regular occurrence where they reevaluate the contract and then make changes as their livelihoods change. It's the same thing with a marriage. And if you did that when the divorce does happen, if it ever does happen, y'all already have like 5, 10, 20 years worth of documents that shows we agreed from day one that this is what we're going to get and this is what we're not going to get. And what a lot of people fail to do um, in those prenuptial agreements, because a prenuptial agreement will usually explains that, all of my assets are listed in this document, right? But very rarely are the documents drawn up where only the assets that are listed in this document are up for grabs, and anything not listed in this document is not up for grabs. That's very rarely done. But if it was done that way, then you would be in the ability to protect your assets a lot more. Now, if you get rich while married, uh, you guys, as you improve your income, you guys have to reassess, like, if she helped you or he helped her become successful, like, how much of that are they going to get? You also have to have the clause in the documents of, if I pass away for natural causes like old age, specifically, right? uh, which means that if I die before old age happens, then you don't get nothing. But if I old age, then you get a whole lot more than what you would have gotten had you divorced me. That actually is an incentivized scenario. Well, if you're going to put in 30 years into our marriage, 40, 50 years into our marriage, just like with a job, you would get a pension of some kind. If the marriage can last for this number of decades, then you're going to be entitled to like 50, 60, 70% of whatever it is that I got, because you were there and should have done something to meaningfully benefit my scenario. And if you have all that stuff documented, you're less likely to get poisoned or have the brakes cut or fall off of a boat, have an accident or some kind of weird stuff where they're doing it for the inheritance, because the documentation strictly requires that I get extremely old and die in order for you to get all of this stuff. Like, this many years of marriage has to occur, which means I have to live this long in order for you to get all this stuff. So if they're just there for the stuff, they have to be discouraged from the divorce, where the divorce would be perceived as a breach of contract. And if it's perceived as a breach of contract, the default for the breach of contract is that you owe so much capital towards breach of that contract that you don't get anything in alimony or compensation or anything to that effect out of the divorce, because you walked away from your responsibility. you know, and that would be, you'd have to structure it very, very detailed. And typically, the really good ironclad prenuptial agreements are thick, hundreds of pages thick, and a lot of money, and 5 or 7 attorneys involved in order to make it work. So it's not cheap to finish, but it is cheap to start. And the fact is that, if you just get into a relationship because the dude wants to get laid and the girl wants to get paid, you're in a situation where, yeah, it'll happen where whoever's got the most is going to have to give the majority of it to the other person. And unless you guys have an agreement to reasonably split, where you're not breaking up under bitter circumstances, unless that's the scenario, you're going to be in a situation where the bitter person is going to do the best they can to take as much from you as possible. And lawyers get a commission, like 30 to 40%. So the lawyer's job, as soon as they hire a lawyer, the lawyer's job is to take even more from you so that the lawyer can get a larger payout. So the goal would be is to have all of this stuff documented and contracted out, because what say you get you a modern 2026 woman that 3 degrees, and she turns out to be the partner in her company. You start up a business, and let's say your business becomes a 6-figure business. Y'all are like a power couple, right? But y'all don't work out. Y'all separate. She should not have to give half of what she's created to her spouse upon divorce, the same way he should not give her half of what he created upon divorce. But ultimately, if you don't document it all, it's considered what is it? What do they call that? Not commonwealth, domestic property. And domestic property means that y'all share it equally. And since you share it equally, you divide it equally, right? And that means that everything gets cut in half, like when Medea was running around with the chainsaw cutting all the furniture in half. That's pretty much how it works, right? If you don't get everything documented. So I tell people all the time now, before you start paying for her bills or move her into your house, get everything under contract. And before you propose, get everything under contract. And before you get married, get everything under contract. And every 6 months or every year, reevaluate that contract. Now, Trader says it's necessary to have a prenup because the marriage is just another contract. I never realized how important it is for anyone getting married. Maybe marriage is finally obsolete. Marriage is not obsolete. Marriage in the United States, at least in the United States, I don't know how it is in other countries, but at least in the United States, it has always been a financial contract. It is a joint venture between two businesses where it's like a merger. Okay, that's always how marriage has been. Now, in the eyes of the church, it's supposed to be about souls, and under the eyes of the Lord or whatever pastor or priest or God or whatever that you're getting married under. But for the governmental side of things, it has always been a financial contract where it is the merger of two entities. So it comes with its benefits, such as tax deductions. That only makes sense when one party is a dependent to the other party. So, like, for example, you get the 150% deductions from filing joint. That only benefits you if either the husband or the wife is a primary income and the other person is a dependent and doesn't generate an income. Because one person is only going to get like 100% of head of household. But if one person is getting 100% of head of household while married will give you 150% of head of household, you can get a lot more deductions if you file joint. But if the wife's got a good job and the husband's got a good job too, and you file joint, you're losing 50% of whatever you could have gotten, because he could have filed separately and got 100% of his benefits, and she could have filed separately and got 100% of her benefits, and they could have combined that together and had 200% of the deductions from their combined income if they filed separately. So it is not obsolete because of the tax deductions. If we start talking about making money make money for you and start building yourself up to a millionaire, billionaire, whatever. In other countries, marriage is like a merger of actual companies, because the CEO of one company will marry the CEO of another company, and that signifies a merger. And that's almost like what would we call that? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it comes with a dowry and arranged marriages. That's what it's called, right? So under those circumstances, and while it's technically been outlawed, it typically happens politically and amongst business structures in order to keep the money in the family. So one rich family will marry their child to another rich family so that the two rich families' children, grandchildren, will be able to be even richer, where the family line between the two of them will be twice as strong as it would have been had each individual one would have married somebody else. And then in those dynamics, they usually forbid or frown upon one of the rich children to marry somebody poor, because it would be bringing an extra liability into the legacy. Because if you think about it, if everybody comes from money, the trust is going to have money after money after money. If somebody who doesn't come from money gets added to the trust, that's an extra person to pay that doesn't contribute to the trust until they die. So it's you start making it starts making a lot of sense when you start looking at it from a different perspective. So yeah, it's not, the prenups are heavily necessary, and if you're not thinking about getting the division of assets and all this other stuff, if you're not trying to get into it for the tax deductions and everything like that, a man does not benefit from a marriage. okay, outside of the tax deductions. So, and because of the laws that requires, especially when the man is making the most money, or if the man is making money and the wife decides to be a stay-at-home mom, in those situations, the man always has to give up half of his stuff. So the marriage never benefits the man. Okay. And under those circumstances, yes, whatever I can get from a long-term committed relationship is going to be the same thing that I can get from a marriage without the sacrifice of risking giving up all my stuff. Now, in any state that has a common law marriage after 5 or 10 years, you don't even have to get married. You kind of just get thrown into it because if you guys live in the same house for 10 years, you're technically married. So if you guys separate after that, you could easily end up in family court dividing assets because you didn't get anything under contract, which is why I said you start doing the division of assets contract before that person moves in. Because like I said, again, the Big Bang Theory, those guys lived in the same place for 15 years. Common law marriage could apply to those guys if they lived in that particular type of state. You lived in the same place together for 15 years, for almost 2 decades. Whatever's in that house, both of you reasonably would have contributed to, which means that when you two part ways, if you guys can't agree on who gets what, the judge will split everything up reasonably fair, hopefully. Steven says, I want to marry up. Yeah, that's not going to happen in America. You might marry up if you go to another country. Well, hold on. Marrying up, Steven, for a man is different from marrying up for a woman. You understand? Because marrying up for a woman, a woman's lifestyle gets better when she has more money coming in. So no matter how much money she makes, if a man makes more money than her, regardless how much money she makes, she's marrying up because her lifestyle increases. Her network increases, her connections increase, her social status increases, her visual image increases, you know, uh, a man's life increases when he gets the kind of woman that cooperates, doesn't talk back, doesn't argue, doesn't cause chaos, continues with peace, aids him in his ability to make more money. If he's on a job that's not getting him the promotions, she either aids him to get that promotion on that job or aid him in finding a better job that pays him more money. If he's running his own business, she's promoting that business. She's working customer service. She's working on the marketing or whatever. Like, for example, Chris Arquette, who had the Totally Bodacious book that we were talking about late last year. His wife was his PR team. She was the one who contacted me so that I could promote his book on this podcast. That's a good wife. She's not even in that industry. She's a lawyer. And it just so happens that her husband put out a book after 10 years and she's promoting the book, contract signing, all of this other stuff. That's what a good wife does, is put in effort to make the man more successful, not just, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen or sleeping with him in the bedroom, like literally investing her efforts into his work life to make his financial success better. That is when a man is marrying up, because his life will improve because of her presence. When a man marries a woman where his life stays the same or gets harder, he married down, further down than he ever deserved, because now he just has a liability that may sleep with him from time to time. And that is not what we need as men, but because we want the companionship and she might be putting out, a lot of men accept that, but that's not what we should be looking for out the gate. Trader says dowry is a great idea. It guarantees there's something to lose if getting divorced. Dowries are a terrible idea, because if you understand the fundamental benefits or principles of the dowry, you'd be like, oh, hell no. The way a dowry works is that the man, not the woman, the man has to give the woman's parents stuff to marry the woman. That's what a dowry is. Very rarely, if at all ever, does a dowry require a woman to give anything to the man or the man's family. Take, for example, in a country where the woman is the breadwinner in the house. She's single. She's taking care of mom, dad, all the cousins. You want to marry that woman. You're taking that income out of that family, which means you got to replace that income. Certain countries, you might have to give them 100 cows. Other countries, you might have to give them $100,000. But you're going to replace the loss of that income to marry that woman. That's a dowry. If she was working in the fields and harvesting the crops, that manpower is not going to be there anymore. The income off of that manpower is not going to be there anymore. You're going to pay the dowry for the loss of that manpower. That's a dowry. Dowries don't apply to men. So the problem that we have is that most marriages, women have nothing to lose in the marriage besides the time that she invests in the marriage. That's it. That's all she's got to lose. So if the women put up assets towards the marriage as leverage to say that I'm going to give this my best shot, and if she files for divorce, she leaves it all on the table, less divorces would occur. Less divorces would occur. If she's getting married and she's putting up her house, her car, her tuition, her retirement, her pension, and everything is on the line, like rolling the dice. We're gonna stay together 40 years, rolling the dice, and if we get divorced in 10, I lose all of my assets. If that is how marriage was, women wouldn't get divorced. And because that's how men experience marriage, that's why 80% of men are in a loveless marriage, because it cost him more money to get divorced than what it would cost him to stay in the marriage. Stephen says, I need a woman who can teach me how to use different salad forks, and I can teach her the art of ramen noodle meals too. Man, you're likely to find the kind of woman that teaches you how to burn ice and the ability to use a microwave for baking TV dinners. If that. Oh, well, no. I don't think that'll work because first of all, the 2 cows aren't a lot in a lot of countries because they want a substantial quantity of money for the children. Even if the child isn't really all that attractive, they want a substantial quantity of money for the children. So if you really want her, you're going to pay that extra money. So it ain't going to be just 2 cows; it's going to be 200 cows. But you got to really want that person. For me, it's like, nah, I gotta see the value in that. But that was a nice interlude to tonight's show. So like I said, we're going to be talking about why Americans don't get rich. We're going to be talking about that today. But before we do, I want to let everybody know who's here on TikTok is that since we're live 7 nights a week, we have different topics every night of the week, where Sundays we talk about questions, comments from the fans, where you guys have questions about what you're going through, and I give you guys solutions for that. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, like business and politics, where Monday we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Tuesday, we talk about different ways to make, save, invest money, different ways to look at it, different ways to budget it and place it in places. Wednesday, we talk about different countries around the world that we can invest in and potentially live in more affordably. I love to push geo arbitrage whenever I can, but it's more to the convenience of what you're looking for in life versus what you've got now, and then how to plan to get that. Then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, today and Thursday, I give you guys information about personal improvement, self-development, relationship topics, socialization, negotiations, building a brand, raises, promotions, retirement, forced retirement, severance packages, termination, and then how to build your 20 and 30-year plan. And prenuptial agreements, girlfriend contracts, all of this stuff is part of your 20 or 30-year plan, because if you plan on not being broke in 10 or 15 years, and you plan on being in a relationship throughout or at some point over the next 10 or 15 years, you need to start working on more effective ways to secure your assets. And this is advice for both men and women, because women are not just dragging around with a pot near their window. Why? Women are getting it on their own. So at some point, when you decide to stop running the streets, and decide to start settling down with your like 2,000 plus body count and like 3 children and 3 baby daddies, You know, when you decide to settle down, whatever assets you have at that point, you want to protect that. So it makes sense for you to start figuring out how to draft these contracts and figuring out how to get this stuff together, so that when you do find yourself in a relationship with somebody, that that person doesn't walk off with all of your stuff. And if you have one of these situations set up where it's mutual between the two of you, the other person has a reassurance that you're not here just for the money, that you're here for the person, because you're protecting their assets by putting them in a kind of mutually diverse contract that clearly dictates that I'm not walking away with nothing I didn't bring in unless you tell me it's okay. And that's going back and forth in the situation. You know, now the women that are only out for the money, they're not going to want to do that. They're gonna make it seem like, for some unorthodox reason, that their logic is that because they were present, they're entitled to half of the estate. Bro, if you clock in at a McDonald's and you ride the clock and do absolutely no work, just sit there all day, and you do that for 10 years and don't get fired, you are not entitled to 50% of the shares of McDonald's. So what makes you think that you can get into a marriage and just ride the waves of self-identifying as the wife, not improving the marriage at all, but when the marriage fails, that you get half of everything that the other person did? It doesn't make sense. So when you end up with those individuals with that low value mindset, that I'm entitled to it because I was here, not because I did anything to make it better, because I was here, those are the ones that you need to avoid. Trader says, what happens when the girlfriend refuses to sign a contract? Well, what do you mean what happens? I mean, that's an interesting question to ask, because I mean, smart people are going to recognize that if she's here for the money, not the person, that she's going to refuse to sign a contract. And smart people are going to recognize that if she doesn't sign a contract, the relationship doesn't go any further. People who are getting into the relationship for the wrong reasons are not going to care about protecting their own assets, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get the wrong reasons accomplished. And they're going to dismiss the fact that, or allow the woman to talk them out of the fact that they are jeopardizing their own estate. So if you really want this person, even if this person isn't valuable to you, if they don't want to sign a contract, you're still going to date them. You're still going to marry them. You're still going to lose half of your stuff. If you value, because it takes men 3/4 of us to make it to the success that they're going to retire. So in 40 years, it would have took what, 30 years to get to the success that I am at 40. At Michael's 70, right? It would have took him what, 60 years, 55, 60 years to get to where he is at 70. And half of your entire life's work will go to the other person if you don't have it under contract. If you're protecting your life's work, then you're setting yourself up for failure. No person, not a woman, not a man, no person is that good morally or ethically that in the midst of emotional chaos that they will not be vindictive. No person will do that. No person is going to honorably say that I am not entitled to and I do not deserve that. Every person will say I'm entitled to something, and there's a lot of people that will also say I'm entitled to more. Okay? There are going to be some that are going to say, I don't want to go through the trouble of getting what I believe I'm entitled to. And those are going to be the people that will willfully walk away from what they think or what they know that they're entitled to. Just, but overall, if you're in a situation where you're talking to this person, you're talking about your financial values, you're talking about your growth, you're talking about your ability to build generational wealth, if that person understands where you're coming from before you start paying her bills, before you invite her to come and live at your house, before she starts spending nights at your house, we're going to have this girlfriend contract under control. She can say, I don't want to sign it. And you can say, sure. But until you sign it, you're not spending nights at my house. The relationship doesn't progress. You're not moving in. If we date for 5 years and you ask, why have we never moved forward? Because you never signed a contract. You have to stand in your non-negotiable expectations for behavior. Now, she has to choose to either stay in this relationship by signing a contract or walk away from a relationship, because from the moment she says no to signing that contract, it's equivalent to her saying no when you get down on one knee and you show her that $10,000 ring that it took you a third of your year to earn so that you can buy her this engagement ring. For her to tell you no in front of 100,000 people, that same no means that the relationship is dead. So if she tells you no to that contract, the relationship is dead, if you're trying to protect your assets. But if you're not trying to protect your assets, it's a topic that's going to be like, oh, I can't believe he tried me like that. And you're going to be trying to make it up to her forever that you propose protecting your assets from her volatility. And she'll continue to bring you that volatility. Then when she leaves and take half of your stuff, you're going to be like, oh man, this is just the way it is. No, bro, it's because you were dumb enough to allow yourself to get robbed in a relationship when you knew that she was here for your stuff. That's what that is. Steven says, as long as I get my clothes, money, and dog, I'm cool. But that's the thing, Steven. You'll get your clothes, you might get your dog, but your money will go to her. So you're not going to be cool. Your money, your house, your savings, your inheritance, she'll get a lot of it if you don't put it under contract. You guys have to understand that no-fault divorces, an annulment and a divorce are not too far different from one another, but the division of assets is the big issue, right? That's the biggest issue. Who gets what when we part ways? And if you don't get that under contract before y'all get started, then when it's time to separate, all she has to do is get the right lawyer, and they take everything, including the clothes on your back, and you got to start your life completely over. Trader says, so you're not buying the usual argument because it's not romantic. I don't see that as an argument. I don't see that as an argument. When has your money been romantic? Romance is supposed to be based off of your effort. Now, true, people who like gifts and people whose love language is gift receiving, and then people who are lazy in their investments in their relationship throw money at the relationship. Gold diggers love the money, but what's romantic about my house, my car, my TV? What's romantic about my money? What's romantic about the time and effort I got to put into work to make this money? Yeah, it's romantic for the things we did in France at my expense. But what's romantic about me putting up thousands of dollars to take you to France? That's not an argument. It is not romantic for me to spend my money on you. It is not at all romantic for me to pay for your medical bills. It's a duty, it's a responsibility, it's an expectation. There's nothing romantic about it, right? Because if you don't do it, she's gonna say you ain't shit. So let's recognize that there's no romance in doing your part in the relationship. Going above and beyond is romantic. You know, the rose petals and champagne and dimming the lights and cooking a meal and making a scrapbook of all of our fondest memories and all this other stuff. That's romantic. But replacing your car because the transmission blew, there's nothing romantic about that. That's tactical. That's utility. The entire marriage is utility. There's nothing romantic about marriage. The marriage event at the reception hall is a party for her to celebrate with society that she supposedly leveled up with a good husband. That's what that is. But there's nothing romantic about that neither. Because if you think about when you are a participant in a marriage, in wedding reception, I don't know how other women would do this, but as a man, I know that I was bored out of my mind for the entire event. I ended up stuck with the groom. So I had a lot of work to do to make sure that he showed up to wherever he was supposed to be at. I wasn't even invited to this wedding. I just showed up because I knew the guy and ended up being his chauffeur because he got wasted and wasn't showing up for his pictures, wasn't showing up for the fitting, wasn't showing up for and then you've got the rehearsals that you got to do. So this is like if you wanted to do a Lord of the Rings live action play, all of the preparation work you have to do to put on this performance for the guests, that's work. So the marriage reception, the wedding reception, that's not romantic, right? Women are going to find it romantic, but think about Bridezilla. The fitting of the dress, the flowers didn't come correct, the table seating chart isn't right, the tablecloth isn't the way it is, the plates don't look right, the venue was overbooked, the pastor is late, we can't find the rings. There's so much stress about what's romantic about getting married. It's a whole second job to put on a performance for the people who are just going to show up, clap, and put down a toaster for you. What's romantic about it? So, I mean, I don't even see that as an argument. You either sign a contract or you don't. You sign your fucking W-2 before you get that job. You sign that fucking W-4 before you get that job. You sign your I-9 before you get your job. All three of them now. Don't think I'm talking about three different scenarios. You sign all three of those before you start working, right? She's going to sign a contract before we start progressing in this relationship. He said, what is the most important aspect of the girlfriend's contract? All of your assets. Protecting all of your assets. I don't understand. Like, was that a loaded question to lead us into something else? Because protecting all of your assets is the core reason why you get this contract. You identify what you own now. And because it's the girlfriend contract, you don't necessarily have to talk about the offshore funds and everything like that. The stuff that you own right now that she has direct access to, the house, the furniture, TVs, the pets, children, whatever's going on, your income, her stuff, what's she bringing into the house? You know, all of this, her bills, your bills, her student debt, your student debt, because as I explained, the division of assets. What are y'all bringing? Now, as the relationship progresses and she has more exposure, like joint bank accounts, building trusts, life insurance policies, inheritance, all of those things gets added to updated versions of the contract as your relationship progresses. By the time you get to the prenuptial agreement, you already have the largest majority of this portion of the agreement already filled out. If you threw out a couch and bought another one, who bought it? If we both went half on it, who's going to get it when we break up? You or me? We agree on this when we buy the couch. So if the couch is still here when we separate, whoever said they're getting the couch and whoever agreed to that, that's what happens. That's right, Stephen. It is not romantic. It's logical. And I'm about as logical as a freaking Vulcan, bro. My logic and reason has literally no emotion to it. And that's going to be one of the reasons why when I talk about a lot of things, that I stand on my non-negotiable expectations for behavior, the non-negotiable expectations makes what I say sound so harsh, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it because a woman wants the delivery to be more feminine and sensitive for her reception. It's not supposed to be a sweet deal. Because if it was her shit on the line, where I was a broke dude with no job, no assets, no income, no inheritance, and I was living off of her $250,000 lifestyle with her 5-bedroom house and her 3 Bentleys and her yacht and her private jet like Ken and Barbie, she would want that contract because I'm not getting nothing that she made before she met me. Right? So let's be real. If she had all of it riding, it would make more sense. But because she's got nothing to lose, she's got everything to gain, it makes no sense for her to agree to get nothing because she brought nothing. And that's why she doesn't want to do it. But it's a logical decision, not a romantic decision. And any woman that doesn't want to agree to that isn't worth my time. Because again, we can go to the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Taipei, Taiwan, Japan, Nagoya, Osaka, Seoul in South Korea. Look now, we can find them. We can find them. The ones in the Philippines literally do this as a career. Marry you for 20 years, and if the relationship don't work, it don't work. But they give you 15 to 20 years. American women will give you 5 dates at $500 a day. You got to be real. He says, so the contract is not for casual dating. Why would you be casually dating? Okay, so let's identify, because we haven't gotten into why do Americans go broke, but these are the kind of questions that is exactly why Americans go broke, because people think that this is the way things are supposed to be. Why are you casually dating? Casually dating is going to be like the hookup culture. You're going to go out, you're going to spend money on somebody that has no value to you. You're going to entertain her at your expense so that you can hopefully sleep with her, right? Which is the Riley theory, because if you're renting her for her body and you're renting her for her time, there's no difference between her and an adult freelance worker. So, but you're going to call that a relationship. You're going to call that dating, right? Likewise, on the flip side, if she wants to be valued for her skill set and her mindset, if she's putting a dollar value to her body and she's putting a dollar value to her time, then her skill set and her mindset is not valuable to the relationship. Why are you doing that to yourself? Because that makes absolutely no sense. If she wants to be treated as an equal, if she wants to be valued as an equal logical mind, if she wants to be valued as an equal logical investor in the relationship, then her body is not on the table as a commodity to trade for capital gain. Her time is not on the table to be traded as a commodity for capital gain, because her time and my time should be valued equally. Her orgasm and mine should be valued equally. And if it's valued equally, then at the end of the day, you cannot ask for a bonus because we both got the exact same thing. I should not be giving you a bonus because you got the physical same contact that I got. You got the time invested that I got. When you start selling your body and your time for my money, it's an adult freelance situation. And we're going to call that a casual relationship. Why are you wasting money on something that's not permanent? You lease a car because it's a financial liability that is a debt that is a tax write-off. You finance a car because you hopefully would need that car, but it's a financial liability. But it at least serves you a purpose. Leasing entertainment, what is the value in that? And then when you think about the Rally theory, if this is a casual relationship and the physical entity is not guaranteed, but the money is guaranteed, she's getting paid for non-performance. And we're calling that casual dating. When you can literally pay an adult freelance worker to do everything your girlfriend and your wife won't do. Look at what Donald Trump did. He gave a woman $135,000 to do what his $50 million wife didn't do. Right? He's a billionaire. Right? This happens because You're getting into a relationship with somebody who is not willing to perform, and you're paying for their presence and potentially physical contact with them. And the Riley theory suggests, why waste all that money on a non-guarantee? Why are you financing a car that's still up for sale? So why are you leasing a girlfriend that's still available to the general population, where she can leave you at a moment's notice and go with another guy that either has more money than you, or is more appealing to her than what you are? Because a lot of women will say it's not always about his looks, because it's about his assets, right? He said, I get it now. I hope so. Um, I can see my weeding now. The guests will be asking, why is the groom chilling in the chilling in the parking lot playing 90s music and not participating until the last second when it's go time? Shit, no. I I can see me in a boardroom having a conference with 12 lawyers, making sure that this is going the way it's supposed to go before we even have an event scheduled. The wife's side of the room is going to be all of her friends and family. The husband's side of the room is going to be all the lawyers that's going to get her for breach of contract if she doesn't say I do. Y'all think it's a game. And I know a lot of women are going to be sitting over there thinking, oh, he's bitter. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not bitter at all. I'm tactical. Because anything that I'm entitled to, if you have generational wealth that you know is coming to you, it is smart for you to protect that before it gets to you. If you know that you're on somebody's living will, if you know that you are the beneficiary of somebody's life policy, or if you know that a family member is going to will you some property, you want to secure that stuff some kind of way before a new person enters into your life and walks away from it. If just in the midst of the family, you want to get it in writing so that your siblings don't take it from you. And that's blood. You want to get documents that prevents probate from having family members walk off with your stuff. You create living wills when the relatives are of sound mind and body, so that when they're no longer of sound mind and body, nobody else can come in there and manipulate them into doing something that they otherwise would not have done, so that the people who were entitled to through the efforts in the life of the person creating the will still get what they're entitled to. And that's family. So when you start talking about, girlfriend contracts in dating a stranger, if you've got living wills and trusts and all of these other documents amongst the blood relatives, why is it so taboo for you not to have the exact same thing for somebody that's not a blood relative? Because when I die, which kid gets what is the same thing as a girlfriend contract, is a division of assets. So when you ask me what's the fundamental core of the division of assets, and it's a fair division of assets because we both agreed on it and signed the contract and potentially got it notarized. Right? That makes more sense. All right, now today we're supposed to be talking about Americans not getting rich and what's causing Americans to not get rich. So we've already covered 1 hour. And the bad decisions that you make in marriage is one of the reasons why men don't stay rich, and why a lot of women become successful over time from all of the divorces that they have, where you're 3 times divorced and now you're a multimillionaire because you divorced a bunch of men that had money. But if you were doing everything right in your life, right, you feel like you're working longer hours than uh, the generation before you. Like your family members back in the day might have been doing 40-hour weekdays, and you're doing like 60-hour weekdays, right? You're more productive than you've ever been before, and you're constantly pushing yourself to learn, adapt, and to improve. You're learning fintech and everything to that effect. You find yourself being the ideal employee, the perfect grinder, the model of modern diligence. But your bank account is still telling a different story. Ain't enough money going around. Hold on, Steven said they're not getting rich because they died trying. I like that. I like that. You know, true to life. Um, like even Michael first started to show that he doesn't need to rest and he'll sleep when he's dead. Uh, we learn from childhood to work until we die, and it's our parents' fault, but it's not really our parents' fault because they didn't know any other way. As children, we were taught to be useful by getting an allowance for helping out around the house, which can be effective in a way. But if you don't teach them what to do with the money, then they're going to learn that I do what you want me to do so that I can get the money that I need to buy the things that I want, which ultimately means that you learn from childhood to work to spend money. I learn how much money I need to get to spend on the things that I want. And that's a huge problem. It leads to the early stages of financial failure between 18 and 35. Parents give kids allowances for getting good grades, which you shouldn't do it, but it's an incentive to make them try harder. You give it to them for cleaning up the house and cooking and helping out around the house. You shouldn't do that. They should be taking care of their house because that's where they live. But people do that to incentivize them to be responsible. Then when you can't afford to keep giving them well, a lot of times while you can afford to give them the allowance, you're just giving it to them because you want them to have a little bit of spending money while they're out in the street so that they don't end up in a situation where they don't have uh, uh, money to like get a cab or get food or whatever the case may be. But when they get money just because they asked you for it, or they get money just because they're leaving the house, now they're expecting the money like they're entitled to it. And that's when you start having a breakdown in authority because now you are the investor in their breathing. And because they're still breathing, you haven't paid up the allowance for this week. So hurry up and give me my money. Right? They didn't earn it. And because they didn't earn it, they don't have any value in it. And because they don't have any value in it, they're going to waste it. Video games, Fortnite, dating, clubbing, hanging out with their friends, keeping up with the Joneses, buying expensive name brand clothes, all of this other stuff. And self-entitlement will compound on social expectations for branding. And now they're going to start pressuring you to buy them the latest iPhone, to buy them the latest name brand gear. And you're going to get tired of that as a parent. And then you're going to tell your kids, if you want that, go get a job and then pay for it yourself, which is then still reinforcing the kids that you must work to buy what you want. At no point in time from 7, 8, 9 years old until you get to this podcast was anybody taught that if you get the money and invest it in the right place and have that money make more money for you, you can then budget your future life by determining how much money would it take in a brokerage account or any type of investment portfolio where the dividends would cover this expectation, right? If you want to go shopping and you want to spend $1,000 a month on shopping, you want a brokerage account to get you $1,000 a month, which means you need a $12,000 a month brokerage account. And if you're doing it off of a 10% return on investment portfolio, then you likely need to have $120,000 in the account in order to get $12,000 a year off of that brokerage account in order for you to spend $1,000 a month going shopping. And when you teach your children that, then your children think, I need to make enough money to invest in something that's going to make more money for me so that I'm not just getting paid for my time or I'm not getting paid for my presence, where I don't become an hourly worker. I become a planner. I become a negotiator. I become an investor, right? Very few parents teach their children to make money outside of the household. When we were kids, we were given a lawnmower and sent out into the neighborhood. Go knock on everybody's door with high grass and charge them to cut their grass. Go down the street and start washing people's cars for pay. All of the things that we were forced to do to go and make money, go sweep parking lots or whatever the case may be. But we were always taught to be a worker, to earn enough money to pay for the things that we want. Then we find ourselves at 30, 40, 50 years old, living from paycheck to paycheck, where every time we get a bonus or a raise or extra tax return money, we're spending every dollar that we get, lifestyle creep, robbing Peter to pay Paul, keeping up with the Joneses, charging it to the Underhills, and always, always, always not having enough money at the end of the month to get through next month. So yeah, you find them in a situation where they're not just getting money, die trying to get the money, they waste, and then they die trying to get more money. It's crazy. He said Warren Buffett is hoarding all the money. Warren Buffett's not hoarding all the money. Warren Buffett is wisely investing a lot of the money, and Warren Buffett's not even the richest man, because Elon Musk and Donald Trump's got more money than Warren Buffett, but Warren Buffett doesn't have to work though. Bill Gates doesn't have to work though. Steve Jobs doesn't have to work though, right? He said, my kid wants an iPhone. I will educate them that flip phones are better than these overpriced pieces of junk. And the only reason why I'm on this one is because it was dirt cheap, and I will use it until failure. Well, Stephen, if I wanted to be able to stay in contact with my child, I would buy my child a flip phone. If my child wants to have a phone, then I would teach my child how to make, save, and invest money so that my child can buy their own phone. You want a $1,500 iPhone? Make $1,500 from somewhere that's not me. Come up with an investment opportunity like Shark Tank. Bring an idea that brings more money into this house, and I'll pay you a commission for that. Want a $1,500 iPhone? Show me a way where through your efforts we can bring in $15,000 into the house, and I'll give you 10%. And this is legal ideas. Teach the children brainstorm. You want me to give you $1,500 for a cell phone? Show me an idea. Show me a tactic that I can profit off of that, where the profit pays for your phone. So instead of teaching your children to be workers, you teach your children to be creators. If I can build a business that can pay for the lifestyle that I want, I still get the lifestyle that I want. But the difference is I don't have to sacrifice my time for it. Not everybody teaches their kids that. But if we were taught that back in the day, like I taught you guys about student loans and donating to public schools, if we were taught that stuff back in the day, none of us will be broke right now. The majority of us are broke because we weren't taught that, because parents didn't know, because their parents didn't know. And I created a podcast to teach you that. Trader says, as I said before, your lecture should have been in my first grade class. I would be a millionaire today. Exactly right. Exactly right. But it took me 40 years and the last 3 years worth of research, which means that I started looking into this heavily at 37, to realize that I've been doing it all wrong. And then as I learn other ways to do it better, I teach you guys other ways to do it better. And I do deep dive research, and I culminate this information, and I piggyback older information with newer information and show you guys plans and processes that actually brings it to a head where it all makes sense. And now that the billionaires are so old that they're one step away from retirement, a lot of them are starting to release their trade secrets, because who gives a fuck? I already got a bunch of money. So now that those trade secrets are starting to come out, now guess what? We're starting to realize, oh, this is what they've been doing for the last 15 years, which is why they're not broke, which is the exact opposite of what we do on a regular basis, which is why we stay broke. Because just like yesterday's discussion, when I told Steven, I didn't put the link in the thing yet. I'm going to do that today or tomorrow, but it's going to be there this week. When I told Steven yesterday, hey, I found a way for you to get you some custom Oxfords if you wanted them. And I was going to give him the link in the membership. And when I give him the link in the membership, he can go and look at the membership. He can create test designs for custom shoes and take a screenshot of it and potentially get an estimated price for it, not have to buy it, window shopping, and hold that in his collection, and then decide if and when he's going to buy it, where he makes sure that he has at least 3 or more outfits that'll go with those shoes. And if he wanted to buy more outfits from Temu or anywhere else where he could expand his wardrobe and then buy the shoes to match those outfits, he can improve his outfits with durable shoes that are more affordable than Jordans and more accepted in more places than sneakers. And he could budget for them instead of just impulse buying them. And me and Michael went on like a 25-minute debate as to why he shouldn't just save for the sake of saving and why it should be a line item in a budget where even if he has $20,000 accessible to him, that if he doesn't have $400 in a budget for some shoes, that the $20,000 isn't spent, because he should be budgeting for the shoes when the shoes make sense, not getting them just because I told him, hey, here's an idea, right? Last generation, if I got a good idea, impulse buy, right? And that's what has been capitalized in 2026, because now you got impulse buy with a biometric print, with a digital wallet, so that you can make the purchase on your cell phone by just touching the screen. You have Alexa with all of your debit and credit cards on there, where you can just tell Alexa, hey, Alexa, make X, Y, and Z purchase, and it gets made. So now you don't even have to touch anything. You can just say it out loud in your house, and purchases get made and stuff gets shipped to your house. Impulse buys. But if you had to go through the effort of going to the bank and getting the money, probably decide against it. If you had to go through the effort of waiting to transfer the money to the location where you could spend the money, you'd probably not buy it. You know, if you had to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the money to be produced in cash before you made that purchase, you probably wouldn't buy it. And that's why they have not only the ability to spend the accessible cash that you have in your accounts, on your credit cards and everything to that effect, they also have the short-term sub loans that they're doing, the micro loans, where any purchase that you've got going on, they'll break it up into 6 or 12 small payments of $25 to $50 a month, so that something that might cost $500 that's outside of your budget, you got $50 though. So they'll take $50 today, and then you just make a $50 payment every month until you pay it off. And a lot of people are destroying their credit because I can buy an item for $500 and give them $50 a month for 10 months. I can buy an item for $1,000 and I can give them $35 a month for 2 years. And sometimes I can do it with interest applied or no interest for the first 6 months and interest applied after that, where now I'm paying more for the exact same item than I would have for originally if I had the money. And all of these things drag you further and further into debt, which leads you to a position of financial failure because you're spending more money than you're making with interest, which is kind of part of what we're going to be talking about today. Hold on. We got us a glitch in the system. I'm trying to get Steven's comment up here real quick. Steven says, if anyone gets an Alexa, that alone is a waste in my eyes. The smartest thing in my house is a phone or TV. Lots of technology. If I want or need something, I need to get up and go get it done. Okay. I believe that Alexa is a waste of time. I at one point in my life, I wanted a smart house, but I have a huge objection to a smart house. And the reason why I have a huge objection to a smart house is because it's a convenience that allows you to be lazy, but it also wiretaps your house. The device is digitally recording 24/7 your voice and your surroundings, your conversations. And sometimes it can make purchases, but that data can be utilized by the company for any reason. And you have no control over it, and you have no idea what is being done with it. And after I've come to understand that, I have no compassion for a smart house or smart equipment. I don't have any automated features on any of my electronics. Everything is manual, because the fact is that as long as they have the capabilities of taking the information that they obtain from my camera and my microphone and using it to turn a profit off of what they hear and see me do, I want to minimize that as much as possible. But the convenience of being able to talk to an electronic device, like for example, PlayStation and Xbox, you put a debit or credit card on file, and then you play games online. And then if you want something, it's downloaded content, you just push a button and buy it. Online cell phone games, download for free. But all of the best stuff on the game, you got to buy it. $1 here, $3 there, $50 there. And all of a sudden, you've spent $1,000 this month. $5 or $10 here and there every day. If you spent $10 a day on a video game, $10 a day on a video game, you spent $300 by the end of the month. It don't seem like nothing when you first do it, but when you look at the final bill, you did a lot. Steven says, linking cards is dumb. The first time in a life I've ever linked a card was because I had to in order to jump into the membership. Oh, yeah, because YouTube's membership requires you to have a card on file so that they can give you the automatic monthly charge. Well, I actually have one credit card on file for my car insurance. And that's like no, I have a car insurance, I have a mortgage, I have insurance policies. So I have 3 things on auto pay on file. And everything else is pay when I get it, when I feel like it. And I usually feel like it like 30 to 90 days before it's due. I actually have now I think about it, I got a card on file for the phone bill as well, because T-Mobile gives you the auto pay, gives you a discount for each line that you have. And I've got like 5 lines that qualifies, so I get like $25 off on my phone bill, which if the auto pay is set up, but I usually pay it 5 to 10 days before the bill is due, or a month, 2-3 months before the bill is due, or overpay it substantially where 2 or 3 months are paid in advance before the bill is due. So they just take off of the balance that they already have in their possession when the billing cycle rolls over during that part of the month. So now that I think about it, I got like four, maybe 5 things but it's all like standard utility bills, all standard of living bills. I don't have a gym membership. I don't have Uber. I don't have anything that is a revolving door of anything. And the reason why I said 4 or 5 is because Walmart.com has got card on file and T-Move's card on file, so that when I'm buying things that I'm going to get shipped in, so that I don't have to go to the store, I order it and it comes in. But the accounts that I have on file are accounts that I believe are of necessity, because I'm ordering groceries from Walmart and I'm ordering the items that I need to improve my residence from Temu at a cheaper price than Amazon or Walmart.com. So, and then I actually price check, because if I can find it cheaper somewhere else, I'll actually get it somewhere else. But usually I will just, for the sake of convenience, and that's what paying on the cards on file is for, is convenience, is that I will just click the button for certain things to make sure that the purchase is made. But what I also do though is because I have online banking, I go to all of my credit cards and I lock the cards from the bank accounts. So in order for me to make a purchase, another app, I have to first go back to my money and unlock the card so that the purchase can be made. So outside of the card that is literally on file for auto pay for certain bills, everything else I have to unlock the card first, which still is a stopgap to prevent impulse buying. So look at that. He said, "That's how you know I find value in the membership. I'm willing to link the card for it." Yeah, but you got the membership when the membership was lower. The membership's double now. You're paying like $2 a month for the membership. The membership is now like $4 a month, which is still cheaper than a cup of coffee. It's cheaper than a cup of coffee a month to get more financial information, more life information, more change your relationship information than what you would get from a $350 an hour life coach, $250 an hour financial advisor. Like there's way more information in membership for less than $5 a month. And then you have the live podcast that's giving you like 3-4 hours a day every day of the weeks. So you've got like 200 hours of interactions for that same less than $5 a month. But it's the most beneficial. It reaps rewards. It pays you back in spades because of all the information that you get and you can utilize. And that's not something that people think about. If you're on Twitter, TikTok, and you're watching this, you can always go to the YouTube channel and dive into the membership and see all the stuff that we're talking about right now. But yeah, it's a phenomenal situation that when I started putting this together, I was like, holy crap, I'm undercharging. I want to keep it cheap so that broke people can afford it and actually make themselves financially better. Because this isn't about me getting rich. This is about you not being broke anymore. But at the same time, I was like, holy crap, I'm completely undercharging this. Because again, YouTube's going to take half of it. So out of two, I'm going to get one. So I was like, let me do four. That way I can get two. But I put tons of stuff in the membership to make sure that you guys get your money's worth. But the feeling of putting in all this extra work and putting all this extra money into your bank account to have nothing left when you go look at it, that's going to put a feeling in your gut as you're looking at your budget. And it isn't just your imagination. For many individuals, it's the quiet, gnawing realization that despite all your efforts, again, you're on one of those treadmills. You're running faster and faster and faster. And sometimes you might even be slipping backwards. And backwards is going to be like, you're making more money, but you owe more money than you make. As opposed to, as you get money, you spend it. You can find yourself slipping back where you now have to borrow against a stone to keep things afloat. And when you start borrowing against a stone to keep things afloat, now you're borrowing more money to pay back the people you borrowed money from with interest, and still not having enough money to cover your core principal expenses. So what if I told you that in the 2026 economy, your hard work isn't just not paying off, it's actually becoming a liability? What if the very thing that you were told would guarantee your success is now the anchor holding you down? I'm going to tell you again, this isn't a motivational speech. This isn't about the 5 simple hacks to be more productive. This is an intervention. So over the rest of the show, we're going to be dissecting the brutal economic and technological shifts that have fundamentally broken the promise that hard work pays off. Okay, we're going to expose invisible traps. We're going to keep reminding you guys what millions of hardworking people like you find yourselves exhausted and financially stagnant. And most importantly, we're going to be showing you some solutions that isn't to work harder, but to start playing a completely different game. If we imagine, let's say we have a guy that's like in his 30s, working as a project manager, respectable job, mid-sized company. On paper, they have the picture of success. Their consistency is to a fault, right? They are the first one to log on in the morning and the last one to send a final email at 8 p.m. Their Slack status is perpetually green, right? When a project is on fire, that's the person who jumps in on a Saturday and put that fire out, right? and then, have a lukewarm coffee as a sense of duty. After a while, life becomes a blur of high intensity work. You find yourselves always on the job, uh, 60 hours, 80 hours a week, very rarely at home with your families. And your calendar is a solid wall of color coded meetings. Weekends that are spent catching up on all the other stuff you couldn't do. A polite way of saying they're doing unpaid overtime just to prevent the coming week from completely slowing the entire new week down. These kind of people make sacrifices to their sleep to complete a deadline, duty bound, loyalty, right? They miss dinners with friends to answer urgent questions from the job. They tell themselves that this is the price of ambition and this is what it takes to get ahead. They go to annual performance reviews where the manager is thrilled. They're complimenting the work that you do. Rewards for the stellar work, for all the sacrifice of time and mental health. It is a 3% merit increase. 3.2%. For a moment, you're going to feel a flicker of pride, but then reality hits. The email from your landlord arrives the following week. The rent increased by 9% this year, citing market rates. Inflation, while it has been moderate in some places, still nibbles away purchasing power. An example of this is in the United States. Real wages have only recently seen small gains after periods of decline. And work wages do not match living wages. There's actually a gap of about 25% more income needed to match normal living wage, not luxury, survival wage. Okay. They're giving you just enough scrap to eat and take your behind back to work tomorrow, but not enough to feel good about the fact that you got to work tomorrow. Right. Once you start looking at student loan statements and confirming taking them off of the firm and the interest is compounding relentlessly, the math is going to be simple here, and it's going to be very devastating. You put in some heroic effort, 50, 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks, your consistent state of low-grade stress, it all results in getting a pay raise that was, in real terms, an actual pay cut. You work harder than ever before in your life, only to fall further behind. This is going to be the trap that is the sensation of being gaslit by an entire economic system. Now, you're told that your effort is valuable, you're praised for your dedication, but the numbers don't lie. The system rewards your burnt out condition with pocket change. And when we talk about 3.2%, not a lot of people know what that means. 3.2% is like coming in on all your days off, saving the job from failure, only to get between 5 and 25 cents raised this quarter, where you might likely receive $1 raise by the end of the year to give them 365 days worth extra time that wasn't pre-planned on a schedule. And when we factor in a lot of the times where you come to work early and work off the clock and stay at work late and work off the clock because the boss doesn't allow unauthorized overtime, but you still got to get the work done. And since you're working off the clock, your performance reflects that you're getting the job done inside of the hourly wage that is handed to you. You are giving away the pay raise. Because think about this. Think about this. You have a 40-hour-a-week work week. Let's say you put in 15 hours of overtime. But let's say that the boss doesn't allow much more than 15 hours of overtime. A 40-hour-a-week work week would be like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. 15-hour work week could be, special shout out to OG Kicks, a 55-hour week could be 5 10-hour days, 5 11-hour days. It could be 6 9-hour days. You know, it depends on how you work things out. Now, and it could be 6 10-hour days with the 1-hour lunch breaks. Right? Think about that. That sucks. Now imagine that you came to work 30 minutes early every day, 6 days out of the week. That's 3 extra hours before your shift. And imagine that you stayed 30 minutes late every day, 6 days a week. That's 3 extra hours of work afterward. That's 6 extra hours a week of overtime that you're not getting paid, time and a half, right? So let's say that you were getting $20 an hour. That's your standard pay. Overtime, $30 an hour. Well, if you're leaving 6 extra hours on the table at $30 an hour, you're leaving an extra $180 a week on the table, right? Now, that's going to be really close to about $750 a month, which over the course of 10 months, that's $7,500 a year that you're leaving on the table, right? If you do a full year, you're looking at something close to like $8,000 or $8,300 out of the full year that you're leaving on the table, that you're giving back to the company, right? If your boss gives you a 3.5% raise, which probably would cover, $5,000 more income, but you're leaving $8,000 on the table, you effectively got nothing out of it, right? So I'm going to tell you right now, one of the worst decisions that we make that keeps us falling backwards is act of charity to our financial employer. I will do whatever it is that you want me to do until I clock out. I will not do anything that you tell me to do unless you're going to allow me to clock in right now to get it done. Whatever you expect me to do must get done between the time I clock in and the time I clock out. And if I know you that the work cannot get done without additional hours needed, either you're going to distribute this work to more people, or I'm going to have to stay on the clock longer so that I can get this job done. But under no circumstances should you sacrifice your free time off the clock for your employer under the simple guise that you're being a good employee. This is going to be one of the ways that we find ourselves failing ourselves while looking good at the process. You have to understand that your life is not about being socially approved. Your life is supposed to be about being effective in building the type of standard of living that you need to be satisfied. With your playing a game where the rules have been secretly rewritten and the goalposts have been moved to a field that you can't even access. Your hard work isn't a ladder, it's a hamster wheel. The energy they're going to have you expending is simply powering a machine that makes someone else rich, because the more stuff that you accomplish, the same pay puts more profits in the other person's pocket without having to cost them extra money. They're not going to look at the 6 hours a week worth of unpaid overtime that you do and give you a $10,000 bonus. They're going to look at the fact that you got extra work done, call you a valuable employee, tell you thank you. I spend $10 on an employee of the month poster and placard it up on the wall so that other people in your job can treat you like garbage because they're going to feel like you're brown nosing the boss. Because they're not going to put in that effort. But having your face in a 8x11 picture frame on the wall in the company doesn't pay your rent, right? This feeling of abandonment is a victim of profound structural breakdowns. For the better part of a century, there was a deal, an unspoken social contract that formed the bedrock of our society. And it was a simple yet powerful promise. If you work hard, if you showed loyalty, if you put in the hours, you would be rewarded. Back in the day, you were. You had a pension, you had a severance package, they gave you a nice watch. When you retired, you didn't have to work anymore. They threw you a retirement party at your job. After you stopped working for the company, people that you work with used to come over and visit you if you're still alive, check on your family, make sure that your kids are good. Some jobs even pave the way for your kids. If your kids become second generation involved in the company, they got the fast track into business. Your diligence back in the day would translate into real, meaningful, guaranteed careers and the ability to build secure middle and upper middle class lifestyles. This promise was anchored in the reality of that time. In industrial and early post-industrial markets, the link between productivity and wages was tangible, meaning that if you put in the work, they upped your pay to match your work. No questions asked. If you was doing the work of 5 guys, you probably got the paycheck of 2 back in the day. They be, well, why is it paid so much? Look at what the fuck you doing. That's why you're getting paid so much, right? As companies back in the day, so did their workers. Long tenure wasn't a sign of loyalty. It was a strategic path to advancements. The pensions that I mentioned, promotions, partnerships, waiting at the end of the road that were guaranteed because you stayed with the company. Our culture was built around this. The good worker was the one who stayed late, the one who took on extra responsibility without being asked to do it. Intense effort wasn't just a work strategy. It became a moral virtue. But for a growing number of people in 2026, that contract feels void. That promise, with if you want to call it a promise ring, hollow, right? You're holding up your end of the bargain, but the system is not. This isn't a story about individuals. It's going to be a story about a quiet revolution that has taken place while we were all busy working. The fundamental rules of value, wealth, and success have been rewritten by 3 seismic shifts. These shifts operate beneath the surface of our daily lives, and They are the reasons why your instinct that your hard work should be valued, but in fact it is being devalued, is absolutely correct. So first, we're looking at a great economic decoupling. And for some of you, you might have done some of this before on the show, because this is the connection, right, between your work and your pay. That isn't the way it used to be, right? That connection between your effort and your flow of money, that's been severed. We're going to explore where the wealth is actually going now and why your paycheck, for many of us, isn't keeping with that. Second is the technological tsunami, because the rise of artificial intelligence isn't just a science fiction story anymore. It is a tool that is actively and rapidly changing the inherent value of human labor itself. And then third, the psychological price. We're going to be examining epidemic burnout and the shocking data that shows how beyond a certain point, intense work doesn't just produce diminished returns, it produces negative returns, actively damaging your career prospects. Understanding these three forces is going to be the first step to escaping the trap. So before you start blaming yourself about this, because while we do talk about first person accountability on the show, and we also talk about responsibility on the show, we have to understand why things are the way they are, and then be able to determine how are we impacting it and how are we impacted by it. Because if it is not directly because of what you're doing, but more the way things are, and you are not adapting to it, it is not necessarily your fault that you didn't know. It will be your fault that you didn't do it. So, the first and perhaps most jarring shift, which is the decoupling of economic growth from individual prosperity. Now, I know that you've heard it on the news that the economy looks resilient. We've heard recently that global growth projected around 3%, but this is a bird's eye view, and it masks the starkly different realities on the ground. It hides a bifurcation, a split that has been described as a K-shaped economy. Okay? Think of the letter K. After a period of shared trajectory, one line shoots upward and the other line slopes downward. This is the economic story of our time. For those at the top, whose wealth is tied to assets, stocks, and ownership, the last decade has been phenomenally lucrative. For a significant portion of the population, however, that other line represents their reality. If you guys played Shoots and Ladders, or the game of life, and no matter how you played that game, you always rolled the dice that had you backtracking and starting over and taking longer and longer and longer to reach the finish line. Right? That's what we're dealing with right now. Right? It's a slow, grinding slide into economic precarity, even while you're working harder than you've ever worked before. The core of the problem is going to be this. For many full-time workers, even in a you're struggling to cover the cost of a secure middle class life. This isn't just an opinion, because over the last few decades, in many developed nations, the cost of housing, healthcare, and education have dramatically outpaced the moderate wage growth many workers have received. The 3% raise that you get feels like an insult when your rent goes up 10% and your health insurance premiums jump by 12%, your car insurance jumps by 8%. This percent gap creates a state of permanent financial fragility where you're one unexpected car repair or medical bill away from a crisis despite doing everything right. Steven says, I'm glad that you pushed me to start getting on the right side of that. I shake the line. Oh yeah, man. Look, when Steven first started coming to the show, I gotta tell you guys, I was on Steven every time he came onto the show. Every time I seen him in the comment section, Steven, you should have been like, Steven, bro, it is not that hard. It is free. The hardest part is setting up the account, and it costs no money to set up the account. The second hardest part is linking the bank account, and it costs no money to link the bank account. The third hardest part is putting $5 in there so that you can get $30 back. That's not hard neither. By the time I was getting him in there, he's like, shit, I should have did this a long time ago. The thing is, sometimes when change is hard, and the reason why change is hard is because we get comfortable in a certain lifestyle. And then you're afraid of failure, where if I do this, my life could get worse. The other side of the coin, a lot of people are afraid of success. Well, what he says is true. How do I continue to maintain it? That's the other side of the coin. And both sides of that coin puts people in a perpetual state of freeze, like a deer in headlights. They're afraid to fight. They're afraid to run. So they just freeze. They linger and they watch to see what happens. And if other people are succeeding in front of them, they will find more motivation to start applying themselves. But the fundamental difference between a billionaire and being broke is that the billionaire did it before the results came out. And that is staying ahead of the wave. When a wave of financial success comes, when a headwind of financial, or a tailwind actually, financial success comes, what happens there is that money is about to come and you put your money down so that you can pay, right? Now, the logic is if you wait to see how much would come when payments come, that money is already distributed before you put your money on the table. So if there is a second wave of income coming in, you might get it, but it's going to be far less than the first wave of income. Procrastination is going to be one of the biggest downfalls of life improvement, not just investing. Because if you wait too long, certain things that you qualified for, you no longer qualify for. Like, I'm gonna throw ladies under the bus one more time real quick. Ladies, y'all got a biological clock. Being a parent in your 20s is more effective for you being a parent in your 30s. More and more women are taught to put family life on hold until you get your career off the ground. But if you had your kids between 20 and 25, your kids would be 10 to 15, which would be self-sustainable children when you're 35. You can work your career until you're 65, but it starts becoming complicated to start having children after 40. So why not have your kids and put them through college and then chase your career instead of chasing your career and then trying to see if you can get at least one kid between 38 and 41, or trying to fall back on the narrative of adoption, where I have no problem with adoption. Adoption has a problem with people. Why? Because it is a very expensive method where they have to do a deep dive audit of financial stability and your social interactions with your partner, and get all deep down into your relationships just to determine that this household might be good for the kid. And that is before the kid decides if this household is good for you. And you still have to pay for the adoption a lot of the time. Depending on the age of the kid could be the kind of kid that doesn't want to live with you and run away. So after you paid to get the kid, the money is gone and the kid left. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. I encourage adoption whenever possible. There's a lot more to it. And that's one of the reasons why not everybody does it. There's a lot to it to get approved, to qualify for it. And that's just one half of the scenario, because the adoption agency must agree to you first. Then the child must agree to you second. If the agency doesn't agree to you, it doesn't matter what the child wants. But if the child doesn't agree with you, you lost all the money you gave to the agency. Because they're not giving you the children for free. If you want to adopt, you got to pay. And it's upward of like $30 for a private adoption. They don't tell you that part. Adoptions aren't free. Adopting a child from an orphanage is like getting a dog from the pound. You got to pay a premium. You got to pay a premium for something that somebody else got rid of. That's why you're not handing them out like, free Girl Scout cookies. You got to pay a premium. Steven said, let me get off topic for a second and let you know this Sunday. I'll be bringing up Chinese stocks because I want to find good dividend paying ones to add to the portfolio. I'm gonna tap dance on that side note real quick, Steven. One of the concerns that you're gonna have with Chinese stocks is, remember, I forgot the name of the stock that you had mentioned to me before. I think it was McDonald's or another one. One of the stocks she was talking to me about last week, that had additional fees in it because it was an international. When you start looking at Chinese stocks, an American stock trade platform, or when you start looking at Chinese stocks as an American investor, there may be, even if you find a Chinese platform that will allow you to set up an account and invest in it, there's going to be international fees involved, because as an American, you have to pay for money that you make worldwide, and China might tax you for money earned from China, even though you live in America. So while I encourage the diversification of having your money in multiple countries, just recognize that the first year that you're getting involved, that there are going to be a lot of more complicated tax paperwork that you would have to deal with, that you might not quite yet understand the first year that you're dealing with offshore stocks and bonds and ETFs and brokerages. So since that's something that you're talking about, or you're talking about covering, what I'll try to do, hopefully before Sunday, is, along with that link for the Oxfords, is grab some information about some Chinese stocks, or the tax implications related to Chinese stocks, one of the two, and then provide that information into the membership so that you can take a look at it. Not to discourage you from getting it, but so that you are aware that when you start investing in Chinese stocks, what hurdles you will have to deal with. Because some countries do not allow foreigners to invest in their stock market. And I don't know if China's one of them. But if you make a profit out of Chinese stock market, what tax concerns would you have to look forward to? That's what we're going to be, that's what I'm going to be providing you information on. But no, that's cool. I appreciate you diving in. I mean, Stephen, you've been a very appropriate member of the show. So if you would have thrown up that side topic, I'm going to be honest, I would have talked about it with you, but I actually don't have any information to give you on that anyway. So I will be trying for you and try to provide that information to you, because you have the right to know. And here on This and That, we try to give you guys this, that, and everything in between to help you guys with being successful. So back to the main topic. If the money isn't going into your paycheck, the money that you're putting all this work in to go get isn't going into your paycheck, where do you think it's going? Well, a labor-based economy to an asset. For most of the 20th century, the primary way to sell labor for progressively higher prices. Today, you're not going to see that. Explosive wealth generation is happening through the ownership of things that grow on their own, like capital. This is going to include everything from stocks and real estate portfolios to intellectual property and digital assets, NFTs. While your income from labor is linear, meaning that per hour you get a specific dollar amount, you're going to trade an hour of your time for a fixed amount of money. The returns on capital can be exponential. An asset can work for you 24 hours a day, compounding in value while you sleep. The productivity gains that technology has a lot is immense, because research shows that they are flowing disproportionately to the owners of capital and technology, not to the labor that operates it. So the people who manage the property are not making nearly as much money as the person who is getting paid off the property. This creates a dangerously new dynamic. In this new economy, your undifferentiated raw labor can start to feel like a depreciating asset. Think about it like a car. The moment you drive off the lot, it begins to lose its value, even though the performance is still excellent. Similarly, if your job consistent tasks that can be done cheaper by someone else, somewhere else, or by an automated system, likely every hour you pour into it is an hour spent investing in something with a declining future value. We were talking about, like, Michael keeps encouraging people to go and get a CDL and drive trucks. Then I keep telling you guys how they are creating driverless rigs to transport goods across the country. Truck drivers that boycotted and created unions and have fought for higher pay are now having to compete with who drives a truck without a driver. More companies that are picking up driverless trucks, where he said there's like 400 trucks out there right now, which according to him isn't a lot in comparison to the, I think he said, like 4 million trucks. What matters is that for every truck that replaces 10 or 15 drivers, the fact is that over time, more and more companies are going to find more and more value in a driverless truck. Because especially when they're going to warehouses like Amazon with humanless workers in the warehouse, your manual labor jobs are starting to get volatile. They're starting to become flimsy. They're no longer guaranteed to secure your standard of living, right? Your work hard to polish a brass fixture on the Titanic is going to be the effort that used to be admirable, but that admirable effort is on a ship that's still going down. The captain goes down with the ship saying, as honorable as people might think that is, that even if you could have saved your ship yourself, you will sacrifice yourself with the ship and save everybody else. You still lost it all. You don't benefit from that, right? This is the cold, hard logic of the decoupler. The world is going to get richer, but the wealth is being captured by a different mechanism. The game is no longer about who works the hardest. It's going to be about who owns the asset that you're working on. And by continuing to believe the logic of working harder to get paid, that pure, unadulterated effort is being expected to be the key to success. As long as you believe that, you are unknowingly participating in a system where your contributions are structurally undervalued. Your wages are systematically suppressed by rising costs, and the real gains are being harvested by others. The second shift is quieter, but it's moving with a speed and a force that we are only just beginning to comprehend. It's that integration of artificial intelligence into the very fabric of our work. This isn't a futuristic prediction. It's the reality of 2026. Recent surveys indicate that a large majority of organizations, around about 87 to 91%, have now adopted an AI in at least one business function. AI is no longer just a tool for tech companies. It's drafting legal documents, analyzing medical scans, managing logistics. You know, robo taxi provided by Uber and the Waze car are two rideshare vehicles that are replacing Uber and Lyft. And Uber and Lyft replace the regular taxi companies. And they're also replacing handling customs inquiries. For decades, the value of knowledgeable workers was tied to their ability to execute tasks. You were paid to analyze a spreadsheet, to write the report, to produce the information. But what happens when a machine can do all those tasks and millions more like that task nearly instantaneously and with virtually zero marginal cost? This brings us to a crucial and uncomfortable economic concept: the declining marginal value of human effort. Think of it this way. If you spend an hour manually creating a summary of a dozen documents, that hour has a certain value. But if an AI can produce more comprehensive summaries in 5 seconds, what is the value of your second hour? And what is it spent doing for the same tasks? What about your 15th hour? The value plummets towards zero. I told you guys before, we had Amazon workers are like $35, $40 an hour. Digitech put automated machines in the warehouse, replaced, I believe, 200,000 workers in Amazon. Each robot is worth $35 a day. That's how much it cost them to put those robots in the warehouse. $35 a day. Now, if you're making $40 an hour and a robot costs $35 a day, the company is effectively saving a little over 23 hours a day worth of labor by replacing you with the machine. Even if they were to put a machine, even if they were to put 3 machines in there to replace you, that would be 3 hours worth of labor that they would be getting 24 hours worth of work from, where your 3 hours worth of labor, you would have had 5 more hours worth of labor left and still would not have completed 24 hours worth of work. The bottom line of a lot of companies is going to be replacing human workers with more efficient AI and robotic workers. Your hard work, when applied to a task that has been commoditized by technology, yields almost no return. You're competing with a force that doesn't get tired, like Johnny Appleseed, or the guy that was, building the train track and competing against the steam engine. I forgot his name too. You got to understand that the machines don't need lunch breaks. They don't need nights and weekends off. They don't have sick days. They don't have family emergencies. And those machines can be scaled indefinitely. It is a competition that you're guaranteed to lose. Steven says, if AI can do an hour of work in 15 seconds, then for the rest of that hour, it better not be slacking off if I'm paying for it. If that AI has time to lean, that AI has time to clean. I mean, you would think that, but really, if the AI can do 1 hour of work in 15 work in 1 hour, which means that AI can do 40 hours of work in 10 hours, which means that machine in 1 day can replace 3 full-time employees in 1 day. Over the course of 7 days, that machine can replace 21 employees on that one task. Now, if you buy 100 machines that do that, 100 machines that can replace 21 employees, now you have just fired 2,100 employees. If it's got time to lean, it's got time to clean. But 21,000 employees just lost their jobs because 1,000 of these machines can do the work of 21,000 people. 100,000 of these machines can do the work of 210,000 employees, right? That is the chaos behind it. And then when it comes down to maintaining these machines, you might have 1 or 3 humans in the whole workforce to repair whatever breaks, whenever it breaks. But the first 2 to 4 years that those machines are in place, since no human is breaking them, they're not likely to default. Crucially, the primary impact of AI in 2026 doesn't disappear because of mass unemployment, and many once feared that unemployment was going to be a huge thing. And it is, but machines are not going to stop being built because of that. So for the mass reallocation of everybody that gets fired, AI is not going to eliminate the need for humans. Instead, it is going to surgically dismantle the jobs into individual tasks, automating the repetitive and predictable tasks and leaving the unequal human division to tasks that the machine isn't programmed to do. So there are going to be some jobs that are going to still be there, But the ones that can be automated, those jobs get replaced, which means that now the employees have to find something else to do. Like Steven said, you got time to lean, you got time to clean, which means that you're going to have to put in more effort performance wise for less money to keep up with a machine. Projections from a few years ago pointed to this particular trend, which we covered on the show. We covered this on the show in 2024 with Mr. Pips, suggesting substantial automation of tasks within roles like customer service, hospitality. You know, this doesn't necessarily mean that all those agents are going to lose their jobs. It just means that their jobs are being fundamentally reshaped away from simple question and answers and towards complex problem solving, empathy, and relationship management, which are only going to be that way until self-learning AI masters those skill sets. But this creates a new invisible divide in the workforce. This divide isn't between the rich and the poor or the educated versus the uneducated. It's between AI leveraged and the AI ignorant. On the one side, you have workers who have embraced AI as a partner. They use it as a superpower. In turn, analysts to spot trends in data and as a creative collaborator, brainstorm ideas. And for them, AI is a lever multiplying the force of their own efforts. These workers often report higher productivity and greater job security. They are focusing their hard work on the things that machines cannot do: strategy, critical thinking, ethical judgment, and complex communications. On the other side are those who continue to work as they always have, either through choice or the lack of training. They're pouring their energy into tasks that are now low value tasks, right? They are in effect competing directly against automation. And this is a precarious position to be in. The very existence of AI that can perform their tasks creates a ceiling on their wage and puts downward pressure on their roles. So why pay a premium for a human to do something that a machine can do for a fraction of the cost? That's going to be the question in the boardroom when they decide to do budget cuts. Your hard work in this new reality is like a powerful current. If you direct that current towards a task that is being automated, it dissipates uselessly. But if you channel that same current through a turbine of AI, you can generate immense power. The choice is no longer whether to work hard, but where and how your hard work is applied in an age of intelligent machines. The first two shifts were external because we had economic and technological forces reshaping the world around you. The third shift that we're about to get into is going to be internal because it's going to be the devastating psychological and physical price of the modern gospel of work, which is called burnout. Stephen says, I told my college president once that I will never use AI. He told me that he will not hire people who do not use AI. That changed my perspective on it. You work in a factory-like job. You might believe that AI would not be effective in your job. However, part of your job is going to collect pallets of product, relocating it to another location in the warehouse, unloading those pallets, and then utilizing the product in some manner. Now, I don't know all of the stuff you do on the job, but fundamentally from our past discussions with your complaint about one of your colleagues leaving the pallets in the wrong place. This is some of the stuff that you do. Amazon has AI forklifts. If they were in your warehouse, those machines would go to the trucks, get the product, bring it to where you need to unload it, then put the pallets where they belong. You, being the efficient that can work on it by yourself, would be able to take that product off of the pallets and then put it where it belongs. Now, they can have a second machine, because Amazon has this too, where they stock the product. You would be checking QR codes and organizing the shelves. The machines will be taking them off of the pallets and handing them to you. 2 machines replaces the guy that pisses you off at work and about 100 other employees that would have otherwise worked on that shift with you. Embracing AI would be you not only learning how to reprogram and maintenance these machines throughout your shift when the machines break down, but also the first generation of machines requires human interaction in order for the self-learning machinery to learn and enhance its task performance. That's a whole job, is interacting with the machine to condition the machine to function the way it was designed. If you're willing to do that job, you've always got a job, because your job is to train the machines so that the machines can replace human workers. So when you originally had that mindset, yeah, I'm not gonna learn, bro, I told myself before I started this podcast, when I used to do affiliate marketing with creating blogs, I told myself that I would not waste the money on an AI to aid me in generating my concepts. And now I've got Opus Clip doing video shorts, and I've got vidIQ providing the SEOs for the podcast and all of the scripts for the podcast, and Perplexity aiding me in generating all of the detailed information in order for me to bring it to vidIQ so that I can provide the scripts, proofread them, re-enhance them, and then produce them to you guys. So I actually went from not liking AI to having 4 AI function my podcast, which would replace 10 humans on my podcast at the very least, if not 20, right? A lot of us are starting to see the value in AI, where recognizing that exact dynamic, a lot of us understand the lack of value in human performance. We have been conditioned to see exhaustion as a badge of honor back in the day. You ain't did a hard day's work, which is why a lot of people don't value podcasters. They don't value content creators, because it is not a physically strenuous job. It's a mentally strenuous thing, not a physical strenuous thing. We used to brag about how little sleep we get. Y'all remember, what was that? I can't remember the artist, 3 6 Mafia or somebody. Your boy said, I got 6 jobs. I don't get tired. Y'all know that song. I got 6 jobs. I don't get tired, right? I don't get tired. Think about that. Do you know how hard you got to work to have 6 jobs that you work every week? That means that you are fundamentally guaranteed to be working 2 shifts 7 days a week. Kevin Gates, thank you. Kevin Gates. Kevin Gates also said recession proof. But think about that. It made absolutely no sense. We got brainwashed off of stuff like that, because after Kevin Gates, we had Rick Ross with hustling. Every hustling. All it is putting in so much effort that you're burnt out to make just enough money to take care of mom. It wasn't about becoming a billionaire. It wasn't about getting rich. It was partially about taking all the money that I earned and spending it on having a good time before I started thinking about paying my bills. Because remember Cash Money Millionaires? I got paid. I got a Escalade with no gas in the tank, but all drinks on me. Gator boots with the Gucci shoes. I ain't got no job, but I stay fly. Look, I can't pay my rent because all my money's spent. To see the lyrics of these songs, like, look, get out there, bust your butt, work all day, all night, all week long, and then on the weekend, blow all that money on having fun. Nowhere in there was be responsible. It was grind mentality to party, which we had a whole generation of work hard, party harder, YOLO. And you wonder why we broke as well. We would see a packed schedule as a sign of importance. I never had free time. I gotta go to work. I gotta go to work. I gotta go to work. But the data is now undeniable. This culture of relentless, high intensity work is not just unhealthy, it is catastrophically bad career strategy. Recent studies have painted an alarming picture. Depending on how it's defined, the percentage of workers experiencing burnout are at risk for at least a unsurmountable, staggeringly high quantity of burnout, where some surveys in the United States are showing that 60 to 80% of people are experiencing burnout. Burnout is when you just couldn't do it anymore. You understand? Either physical burnout or mental burnout, you just can't do it anymore. This is the moment where you just fall out, whether you fall out on the job or you fall out at the house and can't get up and go to the job. Those are those unexpected days off, unpaid days off. That's the streak of perfect attendance that got broken, right? That's the hospitalization with unexpected medical bills. That's the fatigue, the dehydration. That's the catastrophic failure in body function. It's a silent epidemic that is fueled by the always on call culture of digital communication and the misguided belief that more effort always equals more success. The cost is immense. With burnout related productivity, there's going to be a lot of losses that is estimated to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars annually. A critical distinction has emerged in the research that you need to understand. The biggest predictor of negative career outcomes isn't simple working long hours. It's sustained high intensity work. It's the feeling of being constantly overwhelmed, of having to exert immense effort just to keep your head above water. It is the cognitive load of juggling 5 urgent projects at once. We love to brag that we multitask, but that is a mental burnout, right? The emotional labor of dealing with constant demands and the mental strain of never truly being able to switch off. If you've ever worked in customer service where you were the person that had to deal with all the customer complaints, where the customers were cursing you out and threatening you because of something somebody else did, you don't know what's going on. You're coming to fix the problem, and you've got to let them transfer their stress, frustration, and anger over to you, where you now feel psychologically and emotionally burnt out from dealing with all of these people's lack of satisfaction with the product that you didn't even create. You're just here to do collateral damage. We are sacrificing ourselves on the altar of productivity. Surveys show the depth of this sacrifice, with large numbers of people reporting that they give up free time, sacrifice sleep, and neglect their mental health or personal values in the pursuit of what they think is success. I can remember when I was a kid, I missed a good friend's birthday party just so that I can go pick up overtime, as if it was my responsibility to cover a short shift after I requested that day off, because they needed me, not because I needed them. Isn't that something? And a lot of us do this. We are psychologically and emotionally duty bound and dedicated to our identity of being the on-call worker that saves the job when the job has a short shift. And when we do that, we sacrifice anniversaries, birthdays, recitals, soccer practice, anything important to the people that are important to us. We sacrifice our time with them to maintain our identity as the go-to guy on the job. But the job is supposed to be the catalyst for the lifestyle that we want, but we sacrifice the lifestyle that we want for our social reputation on the job. Makes no sense. The brutal irony is that this sacrifice doesn't even work. Beyond a certain threshold, your hard work stops yielding positive returns. It begins to yield negative returns. Think of it as a return on investment observation. Your first 40 hours of focused, healthy work in a week might produce the excellent returns that you need. The next 10 hours, as fatigue sets in, might produce a marginal return. But those hours beyond 50 and 60 hours a week, the ones fueled by caffeine and cortisol, stolen from your sleep and your family, they often produce a negative return. If you're working in hospitality, you've been there 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, you never see a day off. Now you're pissed off at the customer. You're no longer willing to help them. You want them to get out of your drive-through, right? In that state of exhaustion, your strategic thinking collapses. Your creative thought process evaporates. You become purely reactive. You make more mistakes at this time, which then requires even more hours to fix the mistake. Your communication becomes frayed, damaging relationships with colleagues and clients. Burnout makes you a worse employee at your job. Research suggests that sustained high intensity effort, the very thing you thought was proving your worth, is correlated with fewer promotions and lower career satisfaction over the long term. The culture of work tells you to push through the pain. The data tells you that the pain is a signal that you are destroying the very asset that you are trying to leverage, which is your own mind and body. The most successful and sustainable performers in the 2026 economy aren't the ones who can grind the longest. Told y'all, hustle culture is a bad culture to get yourself involved in. It is the ones who understand that rest and recovery and non-negotiable expectations for performance and behavior are not luxuries. If I am off on Thursday and I am not doing work-related tasks on Thursday, you cannot call me for business on Thursday. But if I am off on Thursday and you call on a non-Thursday, where a non-Thursday is business-only calls, I am not talking to you because I made it clear to you that I would deal with that stuff on Thursday. Now, once you understand that I am not going to talk to you about personal stuff until Thursday, your Sunday, hey, guess what happened on Friday conversation is going to be postponed until Thursday. Even if I got Saturday and Sunday off to take naps and rest and relax, I told you I wasn't going to deal with that until Thursday. And I've been telling you that for 5 years. So on Thursday, you're going to contact me and say, hey, guess what happened last week? Because it wasn't important in the first place. It wasn't that you was calling me for an emergency. It was just that you wanted to touch base with me about something that doesn't make, save, or invest money for me. So I compartmentalize that to a time where I am not supposed to be trying to make extra money for myself. And by staying on that, I'm able to be more successful the rest of the week. You guys got to understand that these are going to be the non-negotiable components of high performance. By continuing to believe that burnout is a necessary price for success, you're not just making yourself miserable, you are actively sabotaging your own future. So we stand at a crossroads. The old map is useless. The promise is broken, and the three shifts, which is economic, technological, and psychological, have created a landscape where the old rules, doing more of what you've been doing, will only get you more of what you've got, which is more exhaustion, more frustration, and less progress. And nowhere in there will you be making a substantial quantity of capital for it. The path forward isn't about working harder. It's about finding a new productivity hack to cram 14 hours of work into 12 hours. The path forward is about a radical change in your mindset. It's about shifting your focus from effort to leverage. Your hard work is an incredible force. It's a powerful engine, but an engine that isn't connected to a drivetrain just makes a lot of noise and heat. Leverage is going to be the drivetrain. It's the mechanism that takes your effort and multiplies it effectively. This means embracing what we call the 2026 mindset. The old mindset said that hard work creates success. The new mindset says hard work reveals and amplifies good strategy. Your effort is worthless if your strategy is flawed. Working 80 hours a week is a dying industry and is like trying to swim upstream in a raging river. The first and most important work is to think strategically about where you're applying your energy. And you just seen, we were on a show over the past month talking about the 32-hour work week that Congress is trying to pass. Why are you trying to work 60 hours a week right now if the United States government believes that you should be working 32? Do you understand the fundamental flaw of that? That if you are trying to work 60 hours a week to make enough overtime to cover your bills, and the United States government believes that you should be working 32 so that you will be more effective on your job, and then restructuralizing the system so that you can start getting overtime at 33, where if you put in 10 hours of overtime, you will be making 43 hours. Remember, we said between 40 and 50, that's when you start seeing 50% performance. So if the first 40 hours is peak performance and 32 is full-time work, you can do 8 hours of overtime and still provide peak performance and get a massive increase in pay. Now, if that's what the United States government is talking about right now, then why are you not recalibrating how you get paid? The old mindset said to work more hours. The new mindset's going to say increase my value per hour. And this is going to mean relentless focusing on acquiring skills that compound in value, using AI as a lever to multiply your output, and the ruthless cutting out of low value tasks that consumes your time with little to show for it. Instead of being codependent on AI to generate all of your work and turn it in without proofreading it, if you spend more time critiquing the AI, proofreading the documents, and turning in the documents, instead of you spending 5 hours or 10 hours writing the document, you spent 20 minutes reading it to verify that everything in there was correct before you turned it in. Whenever you correct and amend that AI software so that it can be more tuned to the type of work that you do, the more effective that those documents become. And the more effective those documents become, now all you're doing is just changing a name or changing a date or changing the formatting of the document and then turning it in, where you can get 4 documents done in an hour that used to take you 5 hours to get 1 document done. You are likely outperforming your peers, and you can then stretch your availability, which gives you the ability to take more breaks, take more mental breaks. Because if you're doing, if 1 document is supposed to be done in an hour, and you're getting 4 done, you have the ability to spend half of that hour thinking about other things to accomplish, improving your skill set in other places, making yourself more valuable for the company. The old mindset says succeed by suffering more. The new mindset says succeed by aligning effort with growth, values, and health. I tell you guys on a regular basis that your health is the most important thing to you. And the older you get, the harder it's going to be to maintain it. You have to plan now for what happens when life gets hard because of your health. You have to have a budget for the things that you might need when you get older, like in-home nurses or extra medication or assisted devices. If you're not planning for that, then you're going to be failing in the future. But you have to preserve your health today by not overexerting yourself unnecessarily in tasks that could otherwise have been accomplished by machines. You have to understand that burnout is not a badge of honor, but a sign of poor strategy, and that sustainable success is impossible without physical and mental well-being. And this all comes down to a simple question, but it's going to be a profound equation for success in our modern era. If success equals hard work times strategy times leverage, which is AI plus capital times health, if that's the formula, notice that hard work is still a crucial part of the equation, but it is the fuel. It is the multiplier. If your strategy is 0, if you're working in a role with no future, the result of your success is still 0, because you're multiplying your strategy times your hard work. You're multiplying your health times your hard work. So if your health goes bad, you have 0 success. No amount of hard work can overcome a 0 in any of the other categories. So we need to be honest with ourselves. The game has changed. Your work ethic is not the problem. Your ambition is not. The problem is that you are playing by a set of rules that the creators of the game have already thrown away. Continuing to pour your raw, undifferentiated effort into a system that is designed to devalue that effort is a trap. It's a recipe for burnout, disillusionment, and a life spent feeling like you are constantly falling behind. It's going to be the outcome. But understanding rules is going to it's going to give you back your power. It allows you to redirect your incredible capacity for hard work away from the hamster wheel work and towards things that actually creates value and builds lasting wealth, both for yourself and for others. So you want to stop focusing on being busy and start focusing on being effective. Shift your mindset from selling your time to creating leverage. Build assets, not just resumes. Master the tools that are reshaping our world instead of fearing them. And protect your health and your mindset as the most precious, irreplaceable asset that you have. The world is no longer measured by work. It measures effect. You want to stop selling your work, start creating an effect. So I want to know from you guys, what do you guys think? What is the one task or activity in your week that you feel has the lowest return on your effort? The one thing that you do that makes you feel most like you're stuck on a treadmill. Put that stuff into the comments. And we can continue to talk about the leverage points that we're all missing. So, we covered a lot of stuff today, and we've got a lot of stuff coming. We're going to wrap up tonight's show. I want to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you all this information to make you guys higher value men, not just by increasing your financial life, but also by improving your personal decision-making skills. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can make yourselves higher value women by prioritizing the things in your life that are inside of your control that you don't like, and then making changes to improve that, then navigating around the things that are beyond your control. Steven says, this show is corresponding with how I'm changing my life. When classes start, I will only work 40 a week, hit the gym at college daily, and I bought a meal plan to make things easier. That is a fantastic change. However, since I told you in January, February, and March that you should be automating a side hustle that you can work from the computer, since you're going to have daytime classes with a massive gap between 10 and 5, and then nighttime classes, and then you're going to be going to work after that. You should have a job right now, some kind of side hustle, whether you're overhauling websites, creating I don't know, calendars for people or whatever. Find something that companies need that they suffer from. Like I'm giving you on Tuesdays here, and turn that into a small business where you can wake up in the morning, go to your first class, probably go to your second class, and then after your second class, during your lunch break, you can get paid while you're at school using the school's Wi-Fi to perform your product for whatever companies that you're performing products for, and then go to your evening classes. So when you finish with your nighttime classes between 6 and 9 o'clock, or sometimes 10 o'clock, depending on how late you schedule your classes, you go home and go to bed, and you only got to work like 4 hours a week, which will have you fundamentally putting in about 20 to 25 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week, still making the same quantity of money. I'm proud of you though that you're gonna go from working 2 jobs to working 1 job. You're gonna go from working yourself to death to reorganizing your time to prioritize your education. But why have you not automated a side job? Fundamentally, you automated a side job since like April or May of this year. You would have automated a side job that would have been making half of the income that you're making. What you would have ultimately been able to do is, instead of working 40 hours a week on this job, you would work 20 hours a week on this job. You would work 5 hours or 10 hours a week on the daytime working off of the computer, where you'll be able to subsidize the rest of your money from your computer, where you might actually just quit your job because you're making enough money off of your computer by the end of this semester, so that come spring term, you are self-employed. I mean, that would be more effective for you. Because if you already have a laptop for college and that laptop turns you a profit, the laptop pays for itself. College doesn't pay for the laptop. The laptop pays for itself if the laptop is making you money. So you should be using the laptop to make money, not just using it to take notes for class. But I did tell you that if you sell notes, if you sell templates for essays, if you sell data or concepts, if you take old syllabuses and organize the data based off of those syllabuses and use AI to do it, you can fundamentally create an entire website that sells all the information that your teachers expect students to have for the upcoming semesters or for last semester's stuff. And ultimately, you've already done 3 years of college. you should have 3 years of information that you should be putting into PDF files and attaching digital links to sell to the undergrads. Everybody that's going after their associate's degree should be buying what you use to succeed from you so that they could succeed too, which would subsidize your income. And that would be the type of website that would be automated to the magnitude where you only got to make sure that the payments are coming in and check your emails so that somebody tells you that a link didn't work so that you can make the link work and send them the product. And like I told you before, if you're selling the notes at like $5 a note, $4.99, right? What do we say about that? For you to sustain at $4.99 plus tax, you would need what? 10,000 students to buy your notes to make 50,000 a year. And that's 10,000 students out of your old school probably had a few 100,000 students. It's less than 10% of the population to buy the notes from your class, especially students who take bad notes or miss class, and you have that set up there. And if you're doing it for your old school and you're doing it for your new school, you can be adding stuff to this website for both colleges. You can start looking into other colleges and looking at other curriculums and getting syllabuses from your friends and other people in your school. And hey, what's the syllabus for your class? Scan a copy of it, give it back to them, because they're not going to give a shit. They don't know what you're going to do with it. You just want the syllabus. But when you get the syllabus and then you create the notes for different teachers' syllabuses, guess what you've got now? You've got a massive data bank of already pre-constructed notes for the upcoming semester, which is legal because you're not selling tests. You're not selling answers. You're selling the study guides that will be needed to excel in the class. And if all you needed was 10,000 students across 2 universities, where you got almost 1 million students between 2 universities that you can get to, and all you needed was 10,000 students, that's less than 1%. Drop in the bucket. And nobody's doing this right now. Nobody's doing this. You see, when you Google online certain assignments, you see teachers that are putting these handouts up there for free as aids to other teachers so that teachers can teach. You can sell the information to students so that they can pass. That's a whole career shift, bro. You can find yourself in a situation where you're making more money going to school, getting information to sell knowledge to other students so that the students can go to college and make something out of themselves, and you can stay at home and get paid for them getting information from you. Your whole life might change depending on how well you advertise it, right? But I am proud of you for being able to change from grinding to rethinking about your future. But one of the things that you have to do, Stephen, that and it's not your fault, it's just something that I haven't pressured you to do yet, is that you got to buy back your time. And buying back your time requires you to stop putting a dollar price to the quantity of hours that you're going to be present to get paid. You need to change your mindset to have things set up to where you are getting paid without having to show up, so that your money is still coming in, but your time is reallocated to things that are more valuable to you, like your degree. Because if you're getting paid to go to school without having to utilize student loans, you can use those student loans to invest in a brokerage account that can make more money for you than the interest rates on the student loans, and not have to live off those student loans, and not have to experience the physical and mental strain of working that job after the physical and mental strain of studying in class. So start trying to map out ways to buy back your time. Gonna be honest with you. Once you start putting that together, you're gonna find yourself in a world of possibilities that you never thought possible. You just look at each one of the PDFs that I've dropped over the last 30 days. I have dropped 45 PDFs into the membership, maybe more. If I was selling those link for link for each person that clicked on it, paid to get it, it's a strong possibility that I could have been making a lot of money off of publicizing this information. This is the information that you see in the membership is not seen by everybody. It is exclusive to the people that see it in the membership. But if I publicize that information and put it up for sale, I would likely turn over a whole different kind of revenue. Self-help books, do-it-yourself content, that kind of stuff is gold. Ebooks are gold because when you sell it, ultimately you have no overhead because you have no physical product, you have no maintenance costs, you have no labor costs, and your customer service is simply making sure that the link works and then supplying them with the product after you verify that they paid for it. That's it. They can do whatever they want with it after they bought it from you. But if this is a thing where you create the content, put it onto a squeeze page website that's got a payment source with a link accessible to it, sell it to the customer, and then the customer gets it. And you would have to do it in a way where the document you can't copy and paste off of the document. It has to be like a screenshot image of it where they can't do anything to it besides download it and get the content. But if you did it that way, you would find yourself in a position where you would be making so much more money doing so much less work. It doesn't necessarily have to make you a millionaire overnight, but over the next 3 years, you should be able to make $75,000 over the next 3 years, which should subsidize your 40-hour a week job to bring your 40-hour a week job down to a 25-hour a week job where you can start working part-time and start making more money from the computer, which frees up more time to do one of two things: either study for school or think of other ways to make money for you. Remember, I told you guys that I wouldn't be giving my kids an allowance to live. I wouldn't give my kids an allowance to help out. I wouldn't give my kids an allowance just to show up. That they would have to think of ways that I can financially benefit from their ideas. And then I would invest in that idea and they would get a commission from it. If you free up your free time and start thinking of ways, because you've already got your process of putting money into the brokerage account, you've got CDs in certain places, you're moving over to treasury bonds, you're doing research on your portfolio. You already got that under control. But in order for you to do that more effectively, you got to buy back your time, which means you have to create a standard of living where your business is paying for your standard of living so that you don't got to show up. A boss will always automate the strategy. A worker will always perform the strategy. You have to change your mindset from being a worker to being a boss. Whenever you can make the system work for itself to the magnitude where you can generate enough revenue to hire somebody else to do the work for you, that's the direction you want to go. Because you make less money off of the job, but you don't have to do any of the work. They're doing all the work, you're watching and getting paid to watch. Even if you go from 100% of the money to 20% of the money, and they're doing 100% of the work, but you're getting a 20% cut off of the work that they do. Each person that's doing that work, for every $80 that they generate, you get 20. If you've got 10 people, that's $1,000 that you got $200 to watch those 10 people work. That is scaling a business. But as long as your mindset is, I'm going to do for somebody else, you're fundamentally in that hamster wheel where you're working for the success of somebody else, not for the success of yourself. But again, I'm proud of you for being able to change the way you do things based on the information that you get from this podcast. It always warms my heart to know that I'm actually able to impact and inspire people to change the way they think about things and start moving themselves up. So with that being said, ladies, you too can make yourselves a higher value women, because like I said, if you guys start focusing on your 20 and 30 year plan and reverse engineer that to what you got to do today, and steadfast with that, you have the capabilities of keeping your eyes and ears open for the right suitor with the right personality and characteristics, drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, admiration, and integrity to fulfill his goals and see how his goals mesh well with your goals. Because if you find the right person that has long-term satisfaction goals, your dreams and their dreams can come together and y'all can conquer each other's dreams together. And I tell y'all on a regular basis that two people can make it to $1 million faster than one. But it requires you both to have similar financial values, because living in the moment can sacrifice the future. Now, that's all I got for you guys for tonight. Remember that tomorrow and the rest of the week, we're going to be trying to tiptoe in here around 11:30, 11:45 Eastern Standard Time. So make sure that you guys keep coming back to the show, because we got a lot of information to share with you guys. I want to thank Stephen, Michael, FX Trader, OG Kicks, Joe Jack, Unc Andy. I really appreciate you guys for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. Watching us on TikTok. We're still working.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.